Okay guys, today we are going to make Future Rave in the style of David Guetta and Morten. Why are we doing it? It's so we can learn different techniques by picking apart big artists' tunes so we can apply those techniques into our own tune. As usual, you can download the project file, all the samples completely free below this, and without further ado, let's hop into the door and get it done. So I'm using this magic Arturia Keylab 61 that the guys at Arturia sent me, so thanks for that fellas. First thing we're going to do on this track is 126 BPM for that Future Rave sound, and then we want to create that really aggressive sounding kind of riff synth. Now I know that the original track of Kill Me Slow, I think it's called, is in F sharp minor, sorry, but I'm going to do this in A minor. As you know, it's really easy to work in because it's just the white notes, so you don't need to worry about any of the black notes. It's very easy to kind of know where you are. I'm going to show you how you can do that and then transpose it to a different key at the end. So if you're using Ableton 11 like I am, you could just press this scale button over here, choose whichever scale you want. So we could choose, you know, F sharp minor, press fold, and boom, it just shows those notes. But I'm assuming that you don't have this version, or even if you do, you can do this as well anyway. So you can just draw in all the notes from A up to A, all the white notes, sorry, just like that. If you don't have Ableton 11, because these techniques apply in any DAW, you can just drag them down an octave, and then you can drag them up from A to A an octave as well. And then when you press fold, boom, you got 3 octaves of A minor natural. So let's just select all those, press it across once, and then they are in, when we press fold, all those notes showing are just in the key of A minor. Right, let's get this synth going. I'm just using the stock plugins in Ableton so you can follow along. I'm going to use the analog for this, and the original track would have had, yeah, a riff like this, something like that, but we're going to do it in A minor. But it's just based on a simple saw wave. All we need to do is just make it a bit pluckier by taking down the sustain. And we're going to write our own riff because we don't want to copy the tune completely. I'm going to take the tempo back down so it's easier to write in, put the metronome on, and I'm just going to record and play in a riff just using the white notes. Okay, let's try that again. I like to do these no edits. Okay, so we've got like a rough idea of the notes we want to hit, and they're going to really work well when the bass notes change as well. So when it goes, and that's the beauty of doing everything in the scale. It's going to work. So let's just quantize these. I'm going to double up those low notes. Cool, so that is our riff. We're just going to pretty much repeat that. So let's consolidate it, and then let's get this tune sounding really aggressive in the same way that the Guetta and Morten tune does. So I've just sped it back up to 126 BPM. Let's name this bad boy. Yes, I forgot. How could I forget to name it? Let's call this David Morten. Let's call it Ricky and Morten. I don't know why. I've got a beer with my name on it. I haven't had it yet, so my creativity ain't at the top. Don't drink and drive, kids. Okay, what I'm going to do is make sure they're all hitting the same velocity, because at the moment the velocity is assigned to the volume, so it's kind of dipping slightly if I hit the notes slightly less hard, and now it's all the same. So now let's get this aggressive sound. We go to saturation, we'll add some overdrive distortion. just to add a little bit of buzz. And now this is the trick. Usually I like to put reverb on the auxiliary channels, and if you watch this channel you know that, but I'm actually going to add it to the channel itself, and that's because we want to compress that sound and get that really pumpy compressed sound that's in this particular genre. And now we want to add a compressor and just get that all glued together. So let's just see what's going on here. We want a pretty fast attack so we get that bite. Cool, so that sounds pretty good. I'm just going to add an EQ at the end of that, take out the low end, boost the high end. Cool, so that's that kind of Morten lead sound. Now we're going to work on, let's see what I've got on my magic thing. Oh, the reverse synth that leads into that. Now I know this isn't the exact same riff as in that Morten track, but you know, deal with it, brah. So let's create that reverse like one to lead into that synth. Now the way we're going to do this is just duplicate that synth, delete, well, just quieten that first one up, quieten up lad, and then let's just have the first note play. So it's this basically. Fail. Okay, what we're going to do is we'll drop that down an octave. I'm just going to hold shift, press down. So it's like that. I might allow a bit of the low end back in actually on this one. Yeah, that sounds cool. I might increase the decay time a little bit on the reverb. Cool, now I want to record that and then reverse it. So don't worry if that sounds a bit complex. I've just created an audio track. And again, it doesn't matter which DAW you're using, you can still do this reverse reverb technique. Choose the input from that synth. This second one, we'll record into that channel, and let's just record it. Stop. Boom. Okay, let's reverse that. Delete that one there. And now, when we kind of lead into this synth, we can use this reverse reverb, which is going to give it a really cool effect. So probably sounding something a bit like this. And we can, you know, if it's a bit quiet, just boost it up in the gain, tweak in the fade. Boom. Epic. Now, before we do all the chords and the beats and stuff, I just want to work out these background chords that are going to work really well with this. And I'm going to do that with some strings. So I'll just call this reverse synth, and we're going to color those the natural color of the synth, which is of course, as you know, cyan. And then we are going to create some strings to work out those chords. And I'm going to remember at the end to transpose this to a different track because I've never shown you actually how to do that. So let's get some synth strings. Let's go strings. I'm just going to go into packs, orchestral strings, sounds. That sounds quite nice. We're going to use that. Now, if you use Ableton 10, you can use the template technique that I just showed you, or if you're using 11, you can just, it's already got scale A minor chosen, so you can see these blue notes are the ones that are in that scale. If you press scale, it's now going to do exactly what I did on the synth, but you don't have to draw all the notes in. That's one of the beauties of Ableton 11. And now if we start off on the root note, which is A, we can start off by drawing in the bass notes of this tune. So this is going to be quite a long progression. I think that's the case in the actual original tune. So let's just, now we can tweak these notes where we want, and it's going to sound good. Yes. tweak the levels because it's clipping. Look. Bad boy, naughty boy. So what we're going to do is just simply take the volume down. Let's just see if this is clipping anywhere in the signal path. Yeah, it's a bit hot here and here, so I'm just going to take it down there to stop it clipping. And now we can just take down the volume of the strings. And if it's too quiet, just turn up your monitoring. Now we can work out some chords for these. So if we copy all these bass notes, put them up an octave, now we can just skip a note each time and we can create these lovely chords. I'll just sustain it on that one actually. It's going to sound epic. And again, whoops, taxi. So they are our chords. Now let's get, before we do the big build up and stuff, let's get some vocals on this straight away, because you know we want that vibe, we want to be getting that epic feeling, and the vocals are an integral part to a track like this, because it's, yes, it's future rave, and really it kind of sounds like old school trance but slowed down a bit, but the vocals are a key part to this track. We've got the synth, which is the hook, and we need the vocals. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use Loop Cloud. They've got Loop Cloud 6 that has just come out. So I'm actually going to sync it to Ableton, which works really well actually, because then everything's in the right tempo as well. So let me know if you're enjoying this, by the way, guys. As usual, hit me up with a hell yeah or an amen, brother, if you're feeling holy, because I love it. I love to hear from you. Fact. So let's get cracking. We need to choose the Loop Cloud as the plugin, and that's going to make sure it's synced up to Ableton. Now I can launch that bad boy. Then I'm going to loop this chord progression, and this is something really cool that I just found playing with this. I want a female vocal, so obviously I'll just go into instruments, go along to female vocal, and you can download, I think you can get a free trial of this, so you can click my link below. If you do decide to sign up, I will get an affiliate payment. You know, it's a little bit, but it helps me keep the channel going. Or if you're not comfortable with that, obviously you can just Google it. So this is the thing that I found. First, obviously, well, not obviously, I haven't used it. You can choose A minor as your scale, but this is the thing I really like. I can choose the length of the sample. So I only want pretty full acapellas. So if I put it, say, like 7 or 4.5 seconds as my minimum, I'm only going to get vocals that are that long. And I can key lock them to the track as well. Although I'm selecting A minor vocals, so it won't matter. Your girl is hating on me. Hey. Follow me through. No. Keep holding on. Calm down. Okay, this is a bit loud in my headphones, so I'm just gonna turn it down on the channel in Ableton. And now let's listen to some of them whilst we loop this. And wait till we get the feels, y'all. Instant feels. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. It's all like you have to get the right vocal. That's not the right vocal. I might clip it. I might like cut this bit whilst I just find a vocal, so I'm not like boring you. I sail in your eyes, galaxy. Oh, I like that. Yeah, okay, we're having that. So it took me a while to find it, so I'm glad I kind of edited that bit out. So we'll just drag that in. Again, I can buy it just using the credits. Drag it in. Come on. Come on. Okay, let's just drag the original in there. That looks about right. So now let's press warp 123. Warp mode, complex pro, because it's the best for vocals. Now let's listen.
Maybe I don't know how, but now I fall in love. I know it's not your fault, Cupid's arrow. I see all in
let's
your
add some
eyes,
effects.
galaxy under the light. There is no falling night, stupid arrow. Oh,
yes! Epic! I've just added some room reverb on the auxiliary channel so I can take, so I can have more control. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to compress that reverb by the dry vocal just to duck it slightly and allow that vocal to breathe through a bit. So here we go.
Maybe I don't know how, but now I fall in love. I know it's not your fault, Cupid's arrow. I see all in your eyes, galaxy under the light. There is no falling night, stupid arrow. Oh,
this is epic. Like, I should just finish this track. Right, we're gonna get the rest of this on the go. Build.
It's a fold, it's a fold. That's my night, that's my night.
Wow, that just works. Okay, so with this synth, to lead up into the drop, we are going to do some automation. And what we're going to do is we're going to automate the release on the amplitude. And this is something that Morten and Guetta do in their track. So let's just make sure that we know where it's going to go back on the drop. And then increase the release. And let's check out what happens. You know, it just kind of washes it out like that. And we can also do that with the reverb. Increase the dry. Increase the wet. And then back to that kind of tight release. Why does that take so long to... Cool. And what we want to do is make this drop really huge. So first let's get the kick on there. I'm going to use a kick from the EDM Tips Creative Toolkit, which you can grab below as well. We want something quite toppy. That sounds quite cool. So let's just drop that on there. And now let's work on this Future Rave drop, baby. So let's get this going. I was supposed to do a Prodigy one this week. I actually did do it, so we're having the Prodigy next week, but it's currently being edited and trying out a new video editor to try and save myself some time because it takes a long time to make these. Might choose two. I think will work a little bit better. Cool, let's get that bass line on the go. Now we have got, wow, I spent ages over those vocals, but it's worth spending the time finding the right vocals. For the bass, I'm going to do this again in an analog, and I'm going to make a really kind of analog sounding bass. And the way I'm going to do that is have a square wave, I think, and a sine wave. Add some unison, And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send each oscillator to its own amplifier, so I can pan one left and one right, and then take the frequency filter down. And maybe take the sustain down to make them a bit pluckier. And a bit tighter, like that. Now let's program this bass line in. We're just going to have it hitting that root note on the drop, so that's just an A. And just those three simple notes repeated, which will give it that old school feel. Maybe I can drop that. I know what I'm going to do, because this is stereo and you want to watch out for stereo bass because you could get phase issues. I'm going to keep that bass to the mids and the highs. I'll duplicate it, then I will keep this other bass the opposite of that, so just the lows, and I'm going to take off unison, just take off the second oscillator and make sure that first one is in mono, then choose a sine wave. So this is just the sub bass now. Let's call that sub bass. And now the upper bass, we'll give it that stereo width. Now we need to add some sidechain compression to get that pumping. And the way we're going to do that is, I've got a sidechain channel here. If I open it up, whoops, nothing in it at the moment. Let's grab it and let's just duplicate that. So I've got a little tick sample in there, and I use a tick rather than a kick, so the all the control for the release is controlled by the compressor rather than the length of the kick. So I'll just group those together so they can be processed together as a bass. And then put a normal compressor in whichever DAW you're using, boom, and then open up this and choose your sidechain input, which in this instance is a click, which is set to sends only, so you're never going to hear it, you're just going to use it. I don't like that view. So this is off. And it just squashes it together, because that Future Rave sound is really quite squashed. I might even drop this sub bass an octave. That's a bit low actually. Yeah, okay, I won't. Cool, okay, right, now what do we need to do? We need a bass for the break, which we are also going to use in the drop as well to make it even bigger and more epic. And also we are going to add a pumping synth on the sidechain channel for this, just to make it even bigger. So let's create an auxiliary channel, let's call that Synth Reverb, and I'm just going to copy the settings here in terms of, yeah, I'll copy the settings there, and it's already got a sidechain compressor, but this time we're going to run the sidechain compression from the bouncing sidechain signal like this. So you can hear it. So you can hear that that reverb is now ducking as well. Cool, okay, let's get this other bass that I was talking about. So this is going to be our break bass. Really simple. Again, I'm going to throw on an analog. I'm doing everything with analog today. Let's make it unison again. So it's got that kind of 80s feel. Take the filter down. I don't like that filter envelope, so we'll just put the sustain right up for that. And in fact, we might use 2 oscillators and pan them left and right to make this wide. And again, you could do the same thing to avoid stereo phasing. Detune, and then it's really wide. So in the break it would be something along these lines. But we don't want this reverb playing in the break. That's just for on the drop. So we can just stick it in here on the drop. Strings come in and bass. And we don't want this bouncing happening in the break, so we'll take the sidechain trigger out there. Break bass. Oh!
That's my night, that's my night.
Oh no, we don't want this gubbins coming in yet.
In your eyes are my light.
Yeah, bum, 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 bum. What have I done? I did it wrong. That blimming build is supposed to be there. Okay, I know why I did it wrong, because I moved the chords back to come in slightly after. Alright, come on boys, sort your head out.
In your eyes are my light.
Build. We're going to build a riser actually. And I don't know if the original track's going to build up here, but I imagine it. So that, let's turn that reverb down on the synth a bit. And let's put that second bass in on the drop. I'm just kind of going off on one, guys. Like, this is pretty ad-lib here, but I hope you're enjoying it. Let me know in the comments if you are. And we've got the Prodigy coming next week, one of my favourite producers of all time, Liam Howlett. Okay, I think that's pretty much there. Let's now see what else is going on. Yeah, we've got the drums, of course, we've got the drums. So you've got a couple of big drop bits like that. Have a pumping white noise there, like, by all means. Fill your boots, lad. Get that white noise in there. I'm going to use Will's white noise. Will's white noise. Here we go. This is just one I made earlier. And I'm just gonna stick that on there. Doesn't matter which note you hit because white noise is atonal. And then we should be able to make that pump as well, and we will do that just by grabbing that another sidechain compressor that's already been set up. So we're just adding that to the drop. So if we got the beats coming in here, let's get some beats on the go. Again, I'm going to use the drums from the EDM Tips MIDI pack, sorry, EDM Tips Creative Toolkit. So let's just get some. And they're very simple, the beats in this. You know, these tracks are really pumped quite loud, so the less stuff you got going on, the louder you can get the mix. So let's get the hi-hat in there, just every other kick, sorry, in between each kick, like that. Boom, 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 house music, lovely. Take it down a bit. It's all about choosing the right sound though. I think those two layered up will give it enough aggression. Again, I need to listen to the track again really to work out the tonality, but you know, layering claps is always a good thing to see, so see it. But we need to make sure they're kind of quite low in the mix. So the way I've done that is I've opened up, if you open up this little button here and these two here, S and R, you can create return chain, and you can assign a chain to your auxiliary channels. Now, if that is a bit kind of beyond where you are now, don't worry about it. You can check out my Ultimate EDM Mixing course, nice little plug there, and you'll learn all about this kind of stuff. But I know a lot of you guys that watch this regularly see me do this. So I'm just going to add a little bit of reverb to that clap, and then feed in the other one. Okay, and again, you can play with that synth on the automation as it comes up to a, you know, a part of the track. Adding the release to increase tension. And then we're gonna go into the full groove here. So all I'm gonna do to carry on with this track right now before we head off for the day is copy that, duplicate it. I'm going to copy it with the automation, so I'll turn off the automation lock there. And let's just get a groove going really quickly. This is going to bring the shuffle. So what I'm going to do is get another, and don't worry guys, I'm going to actually do a bit more of this before I give it to you to download, just so it sounds a bit better. That closed hat from the EDM Tips Creative Toolkit is fine. Let's just put that on every 16th, like so. And to make this kind of move a bit more, we're going to add a sidechain compressor just to that hat. Whoa, I know, your mind has been blown. I know it, I understand it, and I'm not going to apologize for it. So at the moment, this is how it goes. It's too, you know, too robotic. So what we're going to do is throw the sidechain compressor on that pump, on that closed hat. So now it goes off, straight. We might even take the top end off that. So it's just very subtle. So, right, if you've got the vocal, as we have, this is how you do the intro to a track like this. And I know these guys do it, you know, any good producer will do this anyway. So to introduce the tune, you want to kind of introduce little elements of it earlier on, so it gets people primed to know that there's stuff going to be coming in later. For instance, we might take this first chord of the strings and just repeat it, but it's going to be quiet for this part of the track. In fact, we could wash it out with reverb, even like this. Add the sidechain compressor on there, like so, and we can take this reverb off. We can take this reverb off when it gets to the break, but let's just kind of start off the track a little bit anyway. Let's bring in these drums, but just the open hats. And we're going to introduce the vocals as well. Now we could do this by having this awesome one that I just randomly found, which I love. So, you know, and have that really quiet in the mix. That's quite a nice way to start a tune, because there's a lot of interest going on, but quite subtle, quite low down. And that's one of the big differences between a pro sounding track and an amateur sounding track. Just because it sounds like there's not much going on, listen a bit more carefully and you'll hear that there usually is. And we're going to take the other vocal as well. Just one part of it. Yeah, okay, we're just going to take this bit here. Just one tiny vocal chop of it. And I should really take off the big reverb as well for this bit. You know, I'm just going to have a little bit. Yeah, that's all we're going to have for the beginning. And through automation and automation mainly, then you would bring that in slowly, and then when the vocals come in, it's not like a massive surprise, because people have already been primed to expect something in that frequency range. But obviously it's going to be much quieter at the beginning. Something like this. Something as simple as that. Really, really low volume, and then we could do a reverse reverb for the way that we did on the synth as well, to introduce this vocal in the in the break. But this will do for now. We'll also automate this low frequency. So imagine this going on for like 16 bars, adding new elements, then we get to the and then this would be the first break, but then the second break the vocals will be on here. Okay, right, this is so almost done, but this is epic. Okay, I'm gonna get these bass notes done, just to follow the chords. Oh, yes. And then there we go. These just follow the bass notes of those piano chords.
Maybe I don't know how, but now I fall in love. I know it's not your fault, Cupid's arrow. I see on in your eyes, galaxy under the light. There is no
and then it's processing to bring everything up. Let's just find a build, like whatever. Drum build. That's taking too long. I'll just sing it. Rise up. Take out those low ends. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Like, that's why having some kind of self-control is important, but it's also why having a lot of tension control in the build-up's good, because when that drop came in, it was weak. And that's largely because everything's so loud and powerful now. You know, and you've got the build-up, you need to take the bass out. So yeah, there's work that needs to be done on that. I'm going to do it a bit more and then you can download it. But I hope you've enjoyed this random impromptu session anyway, guys. Thanks for watching, and if you dig it, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really helps me out, and share it with your friends if you think it's worthwhile. Hang on a second, I told you I was going to show you how to transpose this. I just remembered. Okay, let me transpose it for you. So if you want to have it in a different key, all you do is go into whichever... I mean, you could probably do it another way, but this is how I do it. Is if you want it in the key of F sharp minor, like the original track, the Morten and Guetta one, that is, let's see, from A, that's a rubbish instrument, come on, we got the synth here. From A, which is here, what's the quickest way to get to the F sharp? It's by dropping it 1, 2, 3 semitones. So let's just collect all, press down 3 times. And now do that with all of your melodic elements. 3 times. Bass, 3 semitones down. Sub bass and normal bass, 3 semitones down. And now you'd need, obviously your vocals are now going to be out of tune. So what we can do in Ableton is you could either choose a different vocal in the key that you want it to be in, or if you found an absolute dope ass vocal like this, then you can just make sure that you've got Complex Pro and then just drop it 3 semitones. If you drop it much more than that, it might sound a bit weird, but now let's listen to the tune. I think that's everything that's been dropped.
Maybe I don't know how, but now I fall in love. I know it's not your fault, it's Cupid's arrow. Maybe I don't know how, but now I fall in love. I know it's not your fault, it's Cupid's arrow. I see all in your eyes, galaxy under the light. There is no falling light.
Transposed track. And this was the original key it was in. That's how you do it anyway. It's just easier to write things in A minor if you're not that skilled at playing the piano and whatnot. That's why I like to show it in A minor, because it's easier for beginners and people who aren't that great at playing piano. I just literally just said that. Anyway, until next time, thanks again, cheers, and happy producing.